So I grew up under British colonial government until the mid-60s. And therefore, I would have been very influenced by British colonial, well, certainly I speak English language, as you can hear, even though in Saint Lucia, which also had the French colonial background for many years, till about 1804. We were under French and British, and we are a French Creole country like Haiti, Martinique, Guadeloupe. And I speak a French Creole also, so I'm bilingual. I speak English, but we also had the influence of the French. And therefore, I would say in many ways, we are a French Creole country. Nous parler Creole, we speak Creole, a French Creole, I say like Haiti and so on. And so that is also part of my own cultural and historical background, not just the British. So I grew up in a country with, yes, British English influences. My father was Anglican, my mother was Catholic. I went to Anglican schools, I went to a Catholic secondary school. And so those things are part of the influence, the British literary traditions and so on, historical traditions, but the French Creole. And those things have fed into my writing. But of course, growing up in the 60s and 70s, American influence was never far away. After the Second World War, many Caribbean people looked to America as a place to go to. And because America had almost come into the Second World War and helped to win the Second World War, certainly my parents' generation looked to America as a great place. And certainly we too looked to America. But from about the 70s, 80s, we had what I would call a cultural political revolution renaissance in the Caribbean, where we became more aware of each other. Reggae music, Rastafari, of which I was part for a while, the soca music from Trinidad and Tobago, and these political movements of democratic socialism in the Caribbean, the Black Power movement from America. And so in the 70s, I'm part of a generation which are probably a new Caribbean generation that saw independence come in with all the optimism of independence. And then the post-independence years, in a sense, where we are now, where we began to use our own nation languages, not just the English language, but as Kamau Brathwaite famously described them, we speak our own vernaculars, my French Creole, my own Saint Lucian version of English, Jamaican Trinidadian. And for us in my generation, those things became prominent and dominant to my generation. And they still have a tremendous influence on me in terms of my thinking, my writing, a certain kind of quote-unquote radical liberal view of where we are, certainly post-colonial, anti-colonial, certainly, but post-colonial, wanting to define ourselves, for ourselves, who we are as Caribbean people in the world, becoming more aware through movements like Rastafari of our African heritage. Because before that, as you know, the African heritage was despised and rejected, and the British tradition had to put it down. And many people in the Caribbean had no interest in the African traditions, in the African background. And so my generation was among those people like Walter Rodney, Kamau Brathwaite in literature, that led us back to rediscover our African roots, our African heritage. I think that even today in 2022, we need to forge deeper links with the African continent, with Africa today. Don't just live with some mythical, romantic view of Africa in the past. We need to find Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa today, and travel more to them, have them come to visit us, build up business links with them. Do not depend so much on the West, as is still happening. So I'm very much part of that generation, the revolutionary generation, radical generation. So people like Bob Marley and Rastafari, democratic socialism, and those movements shaped me. And movements in literature, Derek Walcott, who's from my own country, Saint Lucia, and Kamau Brathwaite, and these people in literature and culture helped to shape the thinking of my own generation.
Thank you so much for that.
You know, my coming into my early manhood, and have made me the kind of man that I am. And I speak not only for myself, but for, if you want, the generation of people around me, not only in Saint Lucia, but in the Caribbean. And that kind of very generally describes us, I believe, and what we came out of.
Thank you so much for that, dear John. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. You see, before we started to talk just now,
yes,
I told you that we are not in haste here. Yes. So we do take time
Fine.
at our service. So we just say what we have to say because we are not in haste. So I can guarantee you that um, everything that you have laid out, if we were really to look at them, because I consider
Yes.
all of them very important, valid for our demography, for our people. But we need
Yes.
to talk about these things, and you will see that by the time we spend 1 hour, 30 minutes, we are
Yes,
just
yes,
barely
yes.
starting. All right,
Understood. Yes.
let's leave that aside. We'll consider.
We
We'll
will go as far as we can. Let's look at
all right.
12. If we need to go a bit over 12, we'll do that.
You did make mention of Commonwealth, and of course, at the death of Queen Elizabeth II,
Right.
I think the people were already raising some questions about the Commonwealth. I'm still like trying to even understand that why it's still vital, why it's still important for Africans today. Because if, for example, the British at the time,
Yes.
let me use your words, despise Africa so that they, their own culture can reign supreme over the African people,
Right.
over the people that they colonized.
Exactly. Enslaved.
And at a point,
they enslaved and colonized and discriminated against.
Yeah. And at a point,
right.
And at a point, these people, it appeared to them that they are free. They are not really free as it were, because that will need to be explained what is even meant by freedom.
Indeed.
Because now, what does it really mean, the Commonwealth? Is it to hold the former empire of Britain? All of us are subject to the British monarch, where we are not really, by we, I mean, people of African descent or people that have been colonized by the British power are not really free. They're not really here. Otherwise, what I want to happen is that the Oba of Benin, because I'm coming from Edo State, our royal monarch, our royal family, or the biggest ruler in our land is the Oba of Benin. I want to hold the Queen of England in the same height as the Oba of Benin. I don't want to have the Oba of Benin under the Queen of England.
Yes.
For me, I don't want to take that. If that is how we structure the Commonwealth,
yes,
maybe it might make sense. But if it is a kind of a resemblance of the former colony, that all of us, we are subject to the British monarch,
yes,
where the British monarch is the real ruler, every other person is just a subordinate, then I think I have a problem with the Commonwealth. That is where I think I want you to speak on a little bit. 2022, what does Commonwealth mean for the African people?
Let me answer this. Since you're speaking to me also as a poet, I will come back to what you've asked. Let me read a poem for you about what you've just asked me.
Please go.
It's from a new manuscript which I'm working on called After Poem Psalms. And it was written since the Queen died. That should give you a hint of what's coming. It's not long, so I will read it for you. The BBC man intoned with Big Ben tolling, that metronome of grief. Cues circled in rectangular vigils about the rosemary, myrtle, and oak wreath. Families shifted under the gossiping gazing of the world gathering across streets and screens to see the back of the retreating piper shutting this Elizabethan age. Why do the nations rage? Commonwealth of the once enslaved, the massacred, boot-trampled colonies of this empire, enriched by pirates, arrogant armies, hanging governors, fat bishops. Make reparation, they say to the barons. Apologize, they write to the king. To our royalty and citizens below the Atlantic, our children without memory want rest. How long will Europe and their kind hate our skin and the people plot a vain thing? They made the white man a counterfeit Christ, whiteness their religion and manifesto, spread the mind-destroying disease of colonialism, plundered God's rich earth and his colored peoples under the red, white, and blue of that unholy triad. But the king with hair like wool, himself, the one on the rainbow throne, just and holy, the anointed, whose promises are certain, who sees all things, against whose majesty the kings of the earth set themselves, he knows his own, the oppressed of the earth, and he will deliver in his appointed time. Even now the wand is broken, crown removed, orb and scepter laid down at the feet of the Most High. Let him who have eyes see. The Commonwealth starting to scatter. Let the people of Jah go out of Babylon, flee Sodom and Gomorrah, abandon Egypt. Let revelations be opened again by the prophets, and the rulers take counsel together.